Now we're going to do a Bible lesson together, and this is lesson 17.22.1. Before I start, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to do this in two sections. I'm going to do it in part 1 and part 2. In part 1, I'm just going to introduce the lesson, and then in part 2, which will be a separate video, is going to be the workbook page that we can do together. So first, let's start with our vocabulary words. The first word is stewardship. Stewardship is a relationship of harmony with creation as we appreciate and care for it. The second word is steward, and a steward is someone who takes care of something that belongs to someone else. I love this Bible lesson because it's why I love teaching science. We can appreciate how amazing God is by studying His creation. So this is a special Bible study for me. In Psalm 8:6, it says, "You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet." Does this verse say that He made us rulers? Yes. And what do we rule as image bearers? Everything. And to whom does everything belong? To God. We are guardians of His creation. And that brings us to our third vocabulary word, which is guardian. A guardian is one who has the care of another person or the property of another. So some examples of guardians might be parents, babysitters, nannies, such as that. And then the guardian of property would be custodians like Mr. Corbett, or forest rangers, or rangers at the Jamestown settlement when we visited there. They take care of that property. To be good stewards of God's property, for us to be good stewards, think of things that we can do. We can recycle, we can not pollute, we can not be wasteful. There's some things that we can do. Let's look at Genesis 1:1, and this is when God first began in the beginning, when He tells us about creating the world. And it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And then in Job, it says, Job 26:7, "He spread out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing." And the next verse is very special to me. So before I go into that next verse, I want to tell you about a story from my life. My daughter Kelly, when she was a little girl, had an experience one night. She saw a scary movie, and the movie was about the earth exploding and falling apart. And when she went to bed that night, she couldn't go to sleep because she was so frightened about the movie. She prayed and asked God to help her not to be afraid. And she said God gave her a picture in her mind of a Bible verse. She didn't know what the verse was, but she knew that she would remember it in the morning if He wanted her to. And she felt peace, and she said she fell asleep. And so in the morning, I went in her room, and she told me what had happened, and that God had given her a verse in the night, and it gave her peace. And she remembered the verse. It was Psalm 104, verse 5. But she didn't know what was in that verse. Because I asked her, I said, "Do you know what's in that verse?" "No, I have no idea." So I said, "Let's go get a Bible and look it up." So I sat on her bed, and we looked through a Bible and found that verse. And this is what that verse said. In her child's Bible, this was the version. It said, Psalm 104, verse 5 says, "He set the earth on its foundation. On its foundations, it can never fall apart." We just sat there in awe of God and how amazing that was. To this day, even though she's grown now, we both get great comfort from that word from the Lord. And I hope you get comfort also. And remember that when you are afraid, God is in control and He cares about you. As we look at, think about the earth, we ask these questions. Why does the earth stay where it is and not travel like a shooting star? Because God keeps it in its place. And why do we not need to worry about the earth colliding with other planets? Because God created gravity to hold it in place. God maintains the orbits of the earth and the other planets around the sun. Another verse in the beginning is in Genesis 1:14-18, and it says, "And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. You know, we have talked about, in science, it's interesting that we have talked about the seasons, and we talked about the tilt of the earth giving the seasons. And I thought that it was interesting that we could find these Bible verses that also talk about the seasons. God's Word talks about seasons. So let's look together at Psalm 74, verse 17. It says, "It was you who set all the boundaries of the earth. You made both summer and winter." And then in Ecclesiastes 3:1, it says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." Jeremiah 5:24 says, "They do not say to themselves, 'Let us fear the Lord our God, who gives autumn and spring rains in season, who assures us of the regular weeks of harvest.'" So when God first created the earth in Genesis 1:9 and 10, He said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. And God called the dry ground land, and He called the waters seas. And God said it was good. But then when there was a time of great sin on the earth, God caused the flood. And Psalm 104 verse 6 says, "You covered it with the watery depths as a garment. The waters stood above the mountains." But then we get some comfort from Psalm 104 verse 6 through 9 of God's mercy. "They flowed over the mountains, they went down into the valleys, in the place you assigned for them. You set a boundary they cannot cross. You never again will they cover the earth." So God promised He would never allow the whole earth to flood again. And He promised that that would happen, that it would never flood again. So let's think about some of the questions that are in the book. They're on that last page. Why do you think we don't have to fear the planets crashing together? Because God put them in perfect order with gravity, and He made them secure that way. Why do we not have to worry about the seasons not being fall and summer and all the things we meant for it to be? Because God put our orbit, the planet Earth, in perfect order at a tilt, as we learned, around the sun. And why do we not have to worry about it flooding ever again? Because in His Word He said it would never happen again. It would never be flooding again. So now I want you to, we're going to go to the workbook page, 17.22.1, and see part 2 of this video, a video part 2, as we do our workbook page together. So I will be with you on that workbook page. See you then.